Okay, thank you. Cornbread pointed out, said, as a reminder, Pachyderme, it deals heavily with child sexual assault trauma. It's a short, working through that. But best to be upfront with that and not hide it. If you need to mute, do so. So if you want to mute, I'm not going to spend more than 5 minutes on this. So, all right, so Pachyderme. This is Oscar nominated animated short this year. Is directed by Stephanie Clement. This is an odd film not because of what it deals with. That's not actually the thing. It does deal with those things. It deals with child memory and your memory as a child and how you reassess it as an adult. But it also doesn't really show you anything, doesn't tell you anything, but it's there. It's all done visually. It's all done with suggestion. You can tell something's off. There's kind of creepy horror movie music and stuff like that. And you can tell it's odd. And sometimes, hanging out with your grandparents or your kid does feel odd, but you kind of start out with something's going on here. And they do that with metaphor, they do it with visual metaphor, they do that. There's a certain point where you just sort of know, but there's no insane creepy imagery that hits you over the head and suddenly you're holy shit. This film is called Pachyderme. There's this girl in France. She goes to stay with her grandparents for 10 days. And her grandfather, who she spent a lot of time with in this short, has a huge, pachyderm or elephant tusk in the house. There's certain imagery, particularly with the girl and her little hand and the grandfather and his huge hands. There's certain things about death and particularly how he cuts roses, the heads of the roses off before they wilt. He doesn't like it when flowers wilt, which afterwards I was yeah, I can read into that shit. But I think what she does is actually pretty fascinating because it plays with memory. It plays with certain things that you exaggerate as you get older. There are definitely memories, and I'll ask my parents, I'm what the fuck are you even talking about? And it's why you've had that for 50 years in that order makes utterly no sense. This is a subject matter that Stephanie Clement is very interested in. Is talking about childhood trauma and sexual abuse and stuff like that. What's fairly interesting about this is I feel the modern way is to confront you with it. And I'm not saying this film hides, but it maybe does it without you really realizing what it's about, which I find kind of fascinating, how she visually expresses her opinions. And it's pretty if you really think about all the metaphors, you're oh, well, no fucking duh, that's what's going on. But she does it in such a smart, beautiful, artistic way. The design, I will say, and I'm not trying to be a jerk or put her down as an animator, but has a bit of a AI feel to it, which I don't love, but it's better, definitely drawn, an actual soul was behind this, but it does a little bit. But things with her and summer to winter, all of a sudden it changes. There's certain parts where she's just hearing the animals with her grandfather, and you don't really know what happens, but you know something. And there's just I think there's one shot where he opens the door that feels pretty shocking. But I recommend this short if you're interested in visual storytelling or expressing something just visually and in a different way. But I would say because this does deal with incest and trauma and sexual assault and things like that, although it doesn't tell you how, I think that can be a little difficult, but it is interesting. Someone taking on a controversial topic and doing it in such a kind of interesting way that makes me think about, I'm still thinking about this short quite frequently. So I'd say AI, James Manning's asking me AI how. I'd say AI in the way it kind of flows, the way the design has that kind of weird alien-ish feel to it, but I do think it, you can tell it's a person making it, manipulating and stuff, I guess. I don't know. I'm sorry if everyone can't see this and it was only available to rent. As I said before, I ripped it from YouTube the day the nominations came out because I wanted to review as many of these as I can. I reviewed this one. I've seen other animated shorts for previous years that can be very tough, and it seems like the Academy really likes that. I think there's a lot more going on in this than just talking about that. They're visually, it's very complex, it's very interesting. Some of it is just the feelings you have from those things, from that both disgust and abandonment and everything like that. It's very powerful and smart and odd and messing with the idea of memory and what you remember and what you think of and just like someone's glance that you remember as a kid that they probably don't even remember and maybe never happened, but means everything to you. It's a very smart, interesting film about memory. And I think it's one of the more powerful ones, and kind of like one thing I like about the animated short category is it really pushes the animation medium to new and different ways. And if you are interested in seeing more of an artistic, smart, enlightened, very purposeful animated film, then I'd very much recommend Pachyderme, which I think takes on a controversial subject in a very, very smart way and done in a very beautifully artistic a way that pushes the animation medium in places that I don't think other directors had even thought about, both subtly, visually, and smartly as she does.